Hey guys, welcome back to Chris and Retro. Tonight's video is born out of a recent experience, and it was a reminder of something that I think that for me I'm guilty of, and perhaps it'll resonate with you too. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were particularly upset about a professional incident. There was a situation within the work context that was really irritating them. Now, the issue with it was um, frustration with a certain business process that seemed to be relatable to other frustrations that this person has experienced. Now, the problem was not so much about being frustrated about a work setting. The issue is with the result of that. So the frustration spilled over into what some would consider career limiting moves uh, based on some of the threats that were made and the behavior around it. So I let it sit when it had first happened. It was a couple of days ago. I let it sit for a few days and then had a conversation with this individual relative to what they were thinking. Why are you, why say something like that and not expect to have some consequence for it? And as I got in the conversation, I realized what was generally happening as as a problem came up, this individual was looking at this problem and attributing it to the exact same area that every other problem's been attributed to in their estimation. I think a lot of it originated from the fact this person's been doing what they do for an awful long time. There was a new process and a new group introduced to this person's life at one point that changed everything. And that discomfort and change turned this into a problem. So it's a kind of an antagonistic relationship. So now any single time something comes up from this one business area, the the filter is to automatically blame this one group and say it's always in trouble and everything else. So as I'm coaching this individual about trying to move beyond it and figuring out what to do with what was going on, I realized that um, this person has an auto filter. So now all of us are having, you see people taking selfies and everything else, and I think it's ridiculous. People my age putting filters on their phones and their pictures. I mean, you get what you get with me, but um, and phones and pictures and stuff like that, we filter things to make things more attractive or humorous or whatever, or to get rid of blemishes or face fat or whatever else we want to do. Portray levels of youth and whatever. Um, so we put filters on for that thing. When you filter water, you're getting rid of debris and making sure the water is pure or whatever else. Or you filter coffee, you don't want coffee grounds in your coffee. But when we lay these filters on circumstance, a lot of times, like this individual did, we're putting a filter over, or perhaps a better word is a lens over the situation so that we see it the exact same way every single time. Now, I think in some cases we'll do that because we maybe have it out for another group or another person, or maybe we just are so upset about their presence that we will go to automatic default that this is always the way things are. And that kind of filter, I think, is tremendously damaging because it doesn't ever come to a place where you have a solution. And furthermore, it 9 out of 10 times only reflects poorly on the person putting this quote unquote filter or lens over a circumstance. Now, I'm speaking third party and vague and things like that about the circumstance, but what it did do is I left the conversation recognizing that this is what this individual is doing and advising them that, that's probably not the best way to look at things. And then as I get off the phone, I realize time out. I'm a hypocrite again. I think I've professed to being a hypocrite on this show so many times. You guys got to probably wonder why I can also say I'm an authentic person. Yeah, that's your judgment to make on whether I am an authentic person or not. But I can tell you that when it comes to this area of hypocrisy, I'm noticing as I self-evaluate my own improvement, I see that I'm a hypocrite in certain areas, and this is one. So here I am coaching this individual about not doing that, and in my own life, I'm literally doing it right now. And here's where my filter or my lens puts situations in the way they are. In the recovery community, it's very difficult if you are struggling with addiction, or if you're around somebody else that's struggling with addiction, to not see addicts and see life all the same way. So if I'm in active use, I see everybody is against me. I see that very little is my fault. A lot's been done to me, especially I'm a has some significant trauma in my life. Everything's going to trigger me and take me back to the lowest common denominator of my life, and that will drive me to use every time. So I have those filters and lenses that I look at things through. If I have a loved one that's in active use, every single time that something comes up that's related to similar behavior in their active use, we have a tendency to say, "Here we go again." So the lens, the filter, I think we can call the "Here we go again" filter. And here's one of the dangers, especially for those of us in addiction and those of us dealing with somebody that's struggling with addiction. So if I'm in my active use and I say, "Here we go again," my hope is not there. I don't see life changing ever. And so all the reasons that got me to this place that I'm an addict or an active use now are still the only voices I'm hearing. Because, and my lens from that perspective is that I'm a victim and that no matter what I do, nothing's going to change. Here we go again. And so here we go again takes me down the road to where I could then go eventually use again. Typically, at least that's the case it was for this alcoholic. I understand that other substances, and this debate has come up in the comments on my channel, are different. I recognize that wholly, that the behaviors and the outcomes and how they affect your body and your behavior and all that other stuff, and the reasons why, the duration that everything has different elements to it when you start changing the substance that's being used. If you're a loved one and you're alongside somebody you care about, somebody you're coaching somebody beyond their addiction, it's real easy to do the "here we go again" a lot, because there's a lot of innocent seeming things, I would say, as an addict is an active use, that can be justified as something else. And so that's what the addict leans into, is their behavior has other things it could be as well. It could also not be active use. The issue is the context. As somebody that's coming alongside them, we see the total context and recognize that if you have behavior 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 all in the same time happening, yes, maybe if behavior 1 and 3 are happening, it can be justified as just normal course of a normal living. But if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all happening together, there's a high probability this person is back using it again. And quite honestly, one of the big ones is lying. Their your trust in them is being eroded if you start seeing all these indicators. And so what you might do is say, "Here we go again." So what do we do about all that? I mean, I think that it's difficult, especially in the latter scenario, when you're walking alongside somebody or happen to still be in relationships with people that are involved in active use. How do we get away from that? Oh, here we go again. And, or should we stay there? Should we stay and recognize that, yeah, probably here we go again? I mean, statistically, it will be hard to argue that you're likely not in a here we go again moment. But that's not necessarily the healthy way to approach it. And I'm not suggesting that we be pie in the sky. What I'm suggesting is that we be solution oriented people. The first example I talked about, a work setting. The whole point of coaching somebody to say that you've got this filter or this lens that says here we go again. The reason I there is because now we know that my mindset can change going into those circumstances professionally going forward. I recognize that at least if every single thing out of on the other side of that lens or filter is out of my control, I can at least have my perspective going into it be different so that I'm open to other options. There may not be other options, but at least I haven't shut that down at the onset. Same thing goes in our personal life. Either if you're in active use and your mindset is one that says that here we go again, my life sucks, I have no hope, whatever. If you haven't had an opportunity to at least course correct slightly, adjust just a little bit to see things differently, you're always going to see things through the exact same lens. So I suggest is when you're in those desperate places of mental health, trouble, try to find a way to just course correct a little bit. I'm not suggesting a total shift, but see things through a small different lens, or at least increase one other option before you start looking at situations as here we go again. For those that are walking alongside loved ones, a few other things I would suggest. When it is a mindset thing, I think that probably the solution all along is mindset. I say that one of the greatest victories for people to have in recovery and to continue it going is progress. But I think going into it for this particular matter of us, basically throwing our hands up and putting buckets on everything, is to have our mindset adjusted slightly to be open to possibilities that it could be something different. And so a few things that I think I would look at, I've written down 4. One is see things for reality and not for based on the tape that's being played in your head. So as a person in recovery, one of the obligations I have to myself and my sustained recovery is to see things as they are and not as I'd have them be. Or the flip side of that is not as the worst case possible. You know, seeing things as they are does not mean I'm seeing them as the most grave scenario ever. It just means I'm seeing them as they are. And in that place, I can make a more practical assessment of what I'm dealing with. My mindset is better. So see the reality of the circumstance. And the reason for that, again, is that it gives me a true assessment of what I'm actually dealing with. I'm not dealing with the tape of some other historical event that caused me this problem, or I'm not dealing with the tape of every single time I've worked with this person and they failed me through lies and use. I'm looking at the reality of what we currently have and other possibilities with a mindset that says, let's get to work, progress. Second thing is avoid always and never. That's a mindset as well. I'm not saying power of positive thinking. And I am not saying that statistically something that you're assessing might have a higher tendency to be a problem or might have a lower probability of being successful. But rarely, if any, will you see always and never. Rarely will you see an always and never. There seems to be a crack. I almost just did an always there. There seems to be a crack and an option in situations. Avoid always and never. And then the third one, this is a tough one. This one's a real tough one, and it's a tough one for me. So that's why I kind of paused for a minute, because this is probably the one I have a real hard time with. I'm real good at being judge and jury. We have to be willing to have a role in improvement. So in the role as an addict, by all means, if I'm in active use, I'm gonna have to have more than my fair share of a role in this program improving. But if my lens is saying, here we go again, if I can adjust my mindset slightly to say, I can have a role in improving the situation. If you can at least force your mind to be there, then take that role seriously and do what you can do to change it. It might actually turn into a battle cry. It did for me. Understanding that I have a role in fixing my life definitely became my battle cry and helped me out a ton. The other side too is that when we feel like we're victim to those that we love and we're trying to come alongside somebody that's struggling with addiction, recognize that we have a role. I've talked about planting seeds of hope. We're not fixing people, we're planting a seed. Well, our role is to continue to plant that seed. As so long as we choose to be connected in that situation, that relationship. And that leads me to step number 4. One of the ways to get rid of the here we go again is to exit from the situation. Don't be part of it anymore. If you truly can't see another lens or a filter and it's something that's causing you a problem, if you're coming alongside somebody that's struggling with addiction, you can't do it anymore, separate. It's always an option. You know, in self-defense, when they teach women self-defense, or actually any self-defense, the primary objective is to get away. It's not to do a Hong Kong Fooey kick into somebody's throat and, backflip them out of the universe. Your job is to get away. It's the same thing as if you feel like you're being harmed in such a way, get away. Here we go again can change just by your own footwork, getting out of there. Same thing in a work environment. If it's a work environment that you feel like things are too much and you just can't take it, maybe it's time to look for another opportunity. As an addict, if you feel like if you are seeing lenses of where you want to get better, but the environment that you're in is not allowing for that, and you have a here we go again attitude, get away, leave. That'd be another option. Tonight, as I considered this, I thought it was an important video because if I look back in my history, I would say I probably struggled with this a whole heck of a lot more than I'm willing to admit. I think it comes up in a lot more small moments in a day that I even notice, where I go on default mode. I hit cruise control, realizing that here we go again. We got to do 62 and a 55. There are solutions out there. Our stamina sometimes puts us in situations where we're not willing to look for other options. Let's have a role in a mindset that's correct and recognize that an exit strategy might be actually the thing you need to do. But if you're going to stay in it, see things for what they really are, get rid of the always and the nevers, and accept your role in improving the process. And I believe strongly in these 3 things, and then having the parachute of just getting out of Dodge. I think those things are at least for the vast majority of observable things I've had in my life relative to this attitude and this thinking. These 4 things would capture some level of improvement in the circumstance. It may not solve it, but would head you down a road that is at least a seed of hope. Guys, I really appreciate all your comments. They keep coming in, man. I'm enjoying this. It really is. The channel early on, I always hear about how much work it is to do a YouTube channel. Oh, I know, crybaby soup here. I get to sit here and talk on a mic. But what I'm saying is that for you to be successful, if you believe in your mission, there's a lot to it. And, I'm no expert in the internet universe and what hashtags make people love you and what don't, and what time you got to put things on and what don't. But I tell you, your comments, I can be sure of that. Your comments are something I find intriguing for some cases. I don't always agree with what's out there, but I think your perspectives are slightly different than mine. Sometimes I'm like, I can see that. Some, for the most, I've had very few negative ones that are really bad, but the ones that are out there just saying, look, I have this struggle. I'm a fellow traveler. I love that because I struggle like you do. I can isolate in my own mind and feel as though I'm the only one out there. And knowing there's others there too, and knowing that this message is something that you find some value in, keeps me going. Just like in your recovery journeys and the stuff that you're doing, what you're giving back to others is how you keep your journey alive as well. Guys, please keep tuning in. Please share, for those that you feel like are struggling and maybe some of this content can help. I would really appreciate that. Thank you again. Please like and subscribe. Want to keep the subscriber count going. And by all means, between now and the next time we talk, stay out of trouble.